Alrighty. So thank you everyone for being here today. Welcome to our 7th virtual orientation session, which is our student athlete panel. My name is Jennifer Abraham, and I'm the graduate intern for new student transition programs here at Seton Hill. I'm going to be working with you throughout the summer orientation process to help you get situated on your path to Seton Hill. Today, I'm going to turn it over to our head women's basketball coach and our connections professor, Coach Mark Kozarski. Coach, you can take it away. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate the invite and the introduction. And then I just want to thank all of you for your time. I know at least here in Greensburg, it is an absolutely gorgeous evening on Tuesday. So there are other things you could do, but you chose to come here, and we really do appreciate that. My name is Mark Katarski, as Jen had mentioned. I just finished my 8th year as the head women's basketball coach at Seton Hill University. I have been coaching in college for 21 years now. I've coached at Division III, Division I, and now at Division II. In addition to basketball, I've also coached softball in college. I've coached baseball in college. I've coached tennis, and I've even coached volleyball. So I have a wide range that way. As Jen had mentioned earlier as well, I serve as an instructor for Connections. This will be my 6th year teaching Connections, which each of you will take. And I did my master's degree in higher education administration, and my thesis was actually on Connections classes, freshman seminar, freshman orientation. So this is intriguing to me from an academic end, and then from an experience end, I think it's a great one as well. So I truly, truly appreciate all of your time, and we hope to make this an exciting or an valuable evening. I was joking earlier, how many of you watch like the reunion shows on Bravo, like Real Housewives of whatever? Any of you? Any hands by chance, or is that old people stuff? How about The Challenge, like on MTV? Anybody with that? Okay, so anyways, I feel like I'm one of those people sort of working through a panel, but I'll let the panel introduce themselves. So Sven, I see you on top here. I'll let you go first. Introduce yourself, give them a little bit of your background, and then we'll move on after each of you are done.
Awesome, thank you, Coach. Hey everybody, my name is Sven Rabshaw, and I am actually a 5th year member of the track and field team here at Seton Hill. And outside of athletics, I was a resident assistant, orientation leader, a peer mentor and leader at the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I feel like, oh yeah, I was also the vice president of my class, the class of 2021. And I graduated with my bachelor's of science in computer science and cybersecurity. And now I am pursuing my MBA with a specialization in project management. So I'll be here for 2 more years.
Thanks, Ben. We'll go to Trevor. That's who I see next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Trevor Mitchell. I'm a junior on the football team. I'm a business administration major with a minor in political science. Other than that, I'm involved with the honors program, some of the finance department things, and I'm a member of FCA as well.
Thank you, Trevor. We'll go along to Taylin Tyler.
Hello, my name is Taylin Tyler. Technically, I'm a 5th year. Technically, I'm not. I still have 2 extra years left to play, but I'm part of the women's basketball team. I just graduated in May with a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in criminal justice. I'll be getting my master's in special education. I didn't really do much like involved, but I do have like a lot of experience on campus, as well as I was a part of like the criminal justice club.
Thanks, Taylin. Mackenzie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Zhang. I'm going to be a sophomore next year, and I'm a biology major with a psychology minor. I'm a member of the softball team, and some involvement that I participate in. I'm an orientation leader, so you guys might see me in the fall helping you guys move in and get situated. I am also a member of the FCA, which is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and I'm also a member of the Student Athletic Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mackenzie. And last but certainly not least, Casey.
Hey everyone, my name is Casey Barris. I'm going to be a junior next year. I am a chemistry major, and then outside of that, I'm on the women's equestrian team. I'm actually one of the captains. And I'm also in the honors program, and I'm involved with the student athletic advising committee as well.
Thank you, Casey. To all of the incoming students that are on the call, I would ask each of you as a reminder, just throughout the school year and the next 4 years that you have, really the investment you put into your education is what you get out, is just the reality of it. And I'm not preaching at you when I say that, but through 21 years, that's what I've really seen. I would encourage you to start that tonight. If there are questions that you have or comments that you think would help the group, feel free to do that. We have some questions in a format we'll share. But I think your involvement not only helps yourself, it helps others, but it helps us. It helps us have a sense of what some of the needs might be of the class coming in. So please feel free to be active participants. We would really welcome it. I'll start the first question here because this is the situation that all the new students will be in, and each of these panelists were in over the last 2, 3, 4 years. But what is the biggest adjustment coming to Seton Hill as a student athlete compared to being a high school student athlete? And we'll start with Casey because she went last and she can now go first on this one.
I think the biggest adjustment I faced from coming to high school to college was definitely morning lifts and a lot of the practices. In high school, my sport, equestrian, was actually not funded by our school, so I did it outside of school. So we never really had any practices in the morning and never had to show up early to school. So for me, a lot of it was just having to like time manage and get my homework done early so I could get enough sleep. So I'd be up in the morning for the lift and like be up throughout the day. It was kind of like, it was a shocker, definitely freshman year. But then once I got the hang of it, it took like 1 or 2 times and I was like, oh, I need to get more sleep. And it actually worked out really well. And I like getting up early now. It gets me started. Like getting your workout in early is nice.
Thanks, Casey. Trevor, your thoughts on that?
The biggest thing for me was coming in was just how much more involved that some of the things in college were compared to high school. Just with how much more goes with your sport, specifically between lift, practice, film, and everything. And just adjusting to that and basing your time management off of that as well, just on the extra things that you do and go with your sport, just making sure you have enough time to study and get everything going, just to make sure, because at the end of the day, we're students first before athletes. Just making sure that you give yourself enough time to get all your grades right and just make sure that you have time to take care of your mental health as well.
Thank you for that, Trevor. Taylin, I mean, I obviously know your story a little different having coached you, but what are some thoughts you would share on it?
One thing I would say is that an 8 a.m. start in high school is completely different from an 8 a.m. start in college. That's my biggest adjustment. Like it's really hard to get up and get out of bed, go to practice because you have like very long days. But another thing I could say is that just because like we have practice, you really have to buckle down and have that time to where okay, I'm gonna study, I'm gonna do my homework, because you can't, you're not gonna be able to pass a test from one night to study. It just doesn't work like that. And I also will say, like, when you come from high school to college, although we're like playing sports, you do have like a lot of free time, a lot of downtime, a lot of time on your hands. So utilize that time to study, to get your work done, to go to the resources that are on campus to help you out.
That's really helpful. Sven, you're in an individual sport and yours crosses a couple seasons. So what were some challenges that you felt?
Yeah, so for track and field, we pretty much train as soon as we get in, and then our seasons actually start in December and run all the way to May, middle of May. So it is a long 6 months of practices and everything. But Casey made a good point about practices. For me, practices was definitely the biggest adjustment, because it's not, I don't finish school and then I go to practice for an hour or two. In college, like everybody said, you have 8 a.m. lifts, but you also have to manage your individual practice sessions if you are in an individual sport. Since we don't have class like from 8 a.m. to like 3 p.m., it's like 50-minute, 15-minute blocks, depending on how you schedule. So being able to time manage and go from class, so going from a student to being an athlete, like switching those mindsets on and off, was definitely a big adjustment for me. And it took me a year or two to actually get a hold of it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ben. Mackenzie, any thoughts?
Kind of going off of that, I would definitely say that you definitely have, like, there would be some days where you would have class and then you have to like go to class dressed for practice because you have to leave class early or you have to leave right after class for practice or a game or a lift. And I'd say a big component of that is like being accountable and like letting your professors know ahead of time, and kind of you have to be really big on that planning side of things to make sure that your professors know where you're going and to make up any work that you've lost. Because in high school, like Sven said, like practice and games usually run after school and you don't have to worry about leaving anything early. But sometimes you're going to have class till 3:30, but practice starts at 3. So you have to go to class dressed for practice. And it's not normally a big deal with most professors, but it's definitely about being accountable and making up work that you've lost, and also just making them aware that you're not going to be there or you have to leave early.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Those of you that are willing, of the incoming students, how many of you either use Google Calendars or have some sort of a handwritten planner that you use for everything? Any of you willing to show your hands? Okay. I would encourage you to do some version of that. And I think one of the biggest jumps that I think students make when they get to college is when they realize the value of 15 minutes. And they realize what they can get done in 15 minutes. I see some heads shaking of our panelists. And that's not a threat thing at all. That's not to scare you, but I think using any sort of a vehicle to organize yourself and figure out that, hey, in 15 minutes, I can respond to emails. I can go see a faculty member. I can go see to this office, and those things really alleviate your day. The other advice that I heard once upon a time that I think was really valuable is to think of your day like a work day. And so although you may not have class till noon, try to use 9 to 5, 8 to 4, and maximize that time during those hours. What inevitably will happen as a student athlete is you'll get torn different ways at night. And if you also have classwork on top of that, it can put in some challenging choices for you. But those are just some of my thoughts. I'm a parent myself. I was a teenager once. I hated when my parents told me all the bad things that might happen. They never told me the good things that could happen. Our panelists, what are some of the advantages of being a student athlete? And I'll let any of you go that want to go.
I'll go first. I know for myself, coming in, I was a freshman just last year. And especially with COVID going on, and at least back then we weren't allowed to gather as much. Like, it was really comforting knowing that I was going into it with a team full of friends. Like, I was so worried about making friends because I don't want to say gathering was frowned upon, but it was just hard to make friends. Everyone was wearing masks, all social distancing if it wasn't your roommate. And it still might be really similar to that in the fall. But you can go in knowing that you have a team full of friends, that some are upperclassmen who can give you that advice that you might be looking for. But overall, like, you have a built-in like support system right off the bat, which I think is really nice to know.
Thank you. Another panelist who want to jump in there.
I definitely agree with Mackenzie, but for me, I feel like the biggest advantage is definitely the skills and knowledge you get from being a student athlete. Maybe time management or being like resourceful and like quick on your feet whenever it comes to like anything that pops up. A coach texts you 30 minutes before practice, like, hey, practice got pushed an hour ahead or something. Just being able to adjust quickly and not really freaking out about it, and, you know, staying true to yourself and just grounded was a big thing for me.
We'll get one more response. I think Trevor wanted to jump in.
My biggest thing was just with the family atmosphere that coming in. Like, I fully agree. Like, it's huge, especially going through something like some struggles that some of your teammates have gone through as well. It just makes it a lot easier to bond. And some of the best relationships I've made at Seton Hill at this point, like, have been with my guys on the football team, and just growing through everything with them, whether that's, well, we have a 6 a.m. lift and then we have a class right after all together and just studying together, things like that. It really is a support system and family, especially if you take the time just to be social with everyone. It's one of the biggest advantages you have coming in is just your whole team to work with, whether that be an older teammate that becomes like an older sibling kind of, or now on the flip side, me being an upperclassman, someone being younger, like being able to give the advice that I was given by someone older than me and just passing it on. I think just the family atmosphere is one of the greatest advantages we have.
Thank you all for your thoughts there. I would just say from afar, I heard Peyton Manning speak once, and he said that you can be a student individually and you can be an athlete individually, but to be those two things at the same time is the most rewarding experience you could ever imagine. And this is somebody who was an accomplished athlete, but also an award-winning student too. And so it's something to keep in mind. To Trevor's point about teammates, I will tell you as an adult and having coached for 21 years, it's never the same as it is when you are an actual member of an actual team. And those connections and those relationships you have are lifelong. And to maximize those the best you can, I think is really important. In light of maximizing relationships, I think another thing for student athletes is to maximize resources on campus. We'll start with Casey, and Taylin, I want you to add in on this, but talk about some of the resources that our student athletes coming in may not be aware of, both to help them as students, but also help them in other parts of their life that are out there and available to them.
So there's the counseling center. If you ever have any like mental health issues, that's upstairs. Well, obviously you're not at the school, but it's on the 5th floor of admin. So a lot of people don't know that, but if you're ever going through like a crisis or just need somebody to talk to, there's a counseling center. There's the writing center if you need help with your papers. There's the career center. That they also actually help you like find jobs after you graduate, so you can keep in touch with them for a while. I don't want to take all of them, so Casey, you can go.
Some other ones, I know there's the Math Enrichment Center in the library. It's something that I utilized a lot last year when I was struggling with some of my math courses, and it's actually very helpful because a lot of times your professors are in the library and you can actually go and like talk to them. They can help you through it. Also, on top of that, your advisors are really helpful, and you may not think so at first because all they do is just like usually go over your courses, but if you actually sit down and talk with them, they'll help you. And a lot of times they know you're like student athletes and they try to like schedule you around that and make sure that you're like making sure your mental health is stable while also like being the best athlete and student you can be. I realized a lot this year that advisors are very important.
Thank you, Casey. A few reminders to all the incoming students. Those services are available to you at no additional cost. I sound like I'm selling you something on an infomercial, but they are available to you at no additional cost. And those are part of your tuition. And whether your scholarship paid for it, a job paid for it, or someone else is paying for it, it's all part of that money that goes there. So take advantage of it. The other things too, Taylin touched on the counseling center. Those things are done absolutely confidentially. So coaches do not know, others do not know. And so you can feel comfortable as you do that to take advantage of those resources that might be available there. I want to ask the panelists here, each of you at some point have used a resource on campus. How many of you regretted, and you can show your hands, the 5 of you, how many of you regretted not asking for help or using the resource sooner? If you didn't raise your hand, you were lying. Who wants to give an example? Each of you give an example of maybe a situation where you were contemplating asking a question of a faculty member using a resource and kind of what got you over the edge and maybe how you did it. Go ahead. We'll go with Sven first.
Yeah, so I actually utilized the counseling center the fall of my senior year because I was just struggling with so many things in my life. Just it feels like everything was just piling up and then kind of like spiraled out of control for me to the point where my coaches noticed my performance at practice like being like worse than worse than what it used. No, what am I trying to say? They saw my performance drop in practice because and then they sat me down and they were talking to me and just asking me what was like wrong. And, I was a little bit hesitant. I was like, I'll worry about it myself. But then I actually opened up to them and they recommended the counseling center for me. And I met with one of our counselors, Matt Gallo, and he was a huge help for me getting everything back under control and actually feeling like the person I was in my junior year, since so much did happen over the summer for me, to the point where I was able to recollect everything and just go about living a happy life without struggling in the dark.
Thank you for sharing that, Sven. That's really awesome of you to be willing enough to share that story and the progress you made. Anyone else on the panel with a similar story, whether not counseling or maybe just with a faculty member or a tutoring center, something like that?
I would say the writing center. You know, like you come out of high school, you think, yeah, I can write papers. I know what I'm talking about. Some of these professors do not, they will rip your paper apart. I mean, they will rip it apart. So like using the writing center is definitely was a big help for me. Even, I don't know how, like whether I was a senior or a freshman, like just getting somebody to read over your paper was a really big help.
Yeah, similar with me. I also used the writing center. It was like towards November of the fall semester, like late October. I had a huge like 20-page research paper due for my biology class. And I think like after working on it for an entire semester, it kind of all just starts to like blend together. And it was really nice to have somebody look at it before you turned it in and just make sure that it was right and sounded good, because after an entire semester of writing about the same thing over and over again, it might get a little faded and not be as fresh as you were in August. So they're definitely a huge resource that I recommend to anybody to use.
Thank you for that, Mackenzie. I want to get Casey and Trevor involved in a second, but Mackenzie, I'm going to come back to you, a separate question, but one that your sport deals with quite often. If you have to miss a class for a game, walk us through that process. You know, your sport is prone to rainouts, makeups, etc. Are those automatic that the faculty have to let you go, or what is the process you have to do should you have to miss a class for a game?
So no class absence is automatic. Like you're not guaranteed really. Like you could have an exam one day and some professors will turn around and say, sorry, we're not going to let you miss class. Personally, that didn't happen to me. But we, at the beginning of the semester, were given a sheet that kind of just requests, it has all of our games and all of our home games and our away games and when we'll potentially have to leave. Some of them were leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're missing all of your classes for the day, or you're not leaving till 12 and you'll only miss half an hour of your last class. For me, so normally what would happen, especially with rainouts, I would remind the professor about a week before the game or even like half a week. And I'd kind of just say, hi, I do have a game. Is it okay if I miss for this game? I will, like, what is the work that I'd be responsible for making up? Or is there anything that I can do to be proactive for like the things that I'm missing in the class? And normally all of my professors were really understanding. They know from the get-go that we're student athletes and student athletes exist and it's a thing. There's not like 5 of us at the school and it's this huge inconvenience. Like a large, I believe, isn't it like a third of the school is like a student athlete, and they're all really supportive of us. But yeah, with the rainouts, they understand, and all sports are different whether you're an indoor sport or an outdoor sport. But yeah, whether like it's a week and a half or a week before, just kind of remind them before and just let them know that you're going to be missing and just take ownership for what you will be missing and let them know that you're going to be responsible and take care of it.
Mackenzie, I'm going to follow up with you. The proper way of doing that is by sending your faculty an email that says, hey, comma to start, right? Because the faculty's name is Hey, correct?
No.
What would be the best way to do that?
So definitely with an email, and you'll just start it off with hello, professor, or hi, professor, blank, comma. What I should do is pull up an example.
And how about in person, Mackenzie? Is it good to do this in person if you can?
Yes, definitely. Either you could send them an email and then the next day that you have them in class, follow up, walk up to them, and kind of talk them through that. The beauty of going to a small school like Seton Hill is that you can like form those one-on-one relationships with your professors and they'll know your name, and you can go up to them at the beginning of class or the end of class, probably better at the end of class, and talk them through like your situation.
Well, thank you for that, Mackenzie. It was a little bit of a joke from me and a little bit of a text, but you
I
handled
never started
it.
an email off with, hey, don't do that. Please don't do
Good. Thank you for that. I think that's great. I would encourage all of you that are incoming, feel free to talk to the faculty in person. I think that's the best way to do it. Faculty are required to post office hours, and those are mandated times when they have to be available for you. That's usually on the syllabus when you start. So if you can't catch them before or after class, office hours are the other opportunity. The other thing I would be clear is just from a faculty and a coach's end. In high school, you may have felt opportunities were afforded to you, both directly and indirectly, because of being an athlete. In college, specifically at Seton Hill, in the NCAA, there are safeguards to remove that. They certainly will not be punished for being an athlete, but they have to be very careful that they give you any preferential treatment. So I think that those are things to just be aware of as you go into it, and it doesn't have to be a scary thing. We talked about missing contests for games. Casey, you're an equestrian, you got to go off campus, you have certain training times. Is there anything you can do in class scheduling to move those around, or do you really just have to kind of take the schedule that they're given to you?
Yeah, so for the equestrian team, our facilities are actually in Bell Vernon, which is like a half an hour drive out there. So a lot of our practice time is travel time, which it helps you a lot, but it's also like not good because it takes a lot of time to get there. But it's nice because you can do homework on the ride there and back, which I've definitely utilized before. As far as scheduling for your practices, for us, you you can't really schedule around our practice times because we can't, as athletes, schedule our classes. We're a student before we were an athlete, so we can't schedule our classes around when we have practice times. For us, our process for practices, we have everyone schedule their classes as normal, and then we have everyone send in their schedules to us, and we make the practices around the times that they have classes. And then a lot of times for competitions and meets, when we have double headers over the weekend, when we leave on Fridays, there are some cases where we have to like talk to our professors and see if we can leave early just because it takes so long to travel to meet. But other than that, you can't really schedule your classes around practices. That's not a thing.
Good answer, Casey. That's accurate. I would encourage all of you, however, though, to have conversations and be proactive. Talk to your coaches, ask them for game schedules. And also have those conversations with your advisors. If you know, for instance, I know in our sport of basketball, we play basically every Wednesday night. If there's a mandated Wednesday night class or a Wednesday lab, see if you can have a conversation with an advisor with that reason, and make sure that your coach and even our faculty athletic rep are aware. But don't try to do those universally, and don't expect automatic results either with it as you go into it. But those are things to be aware of. I want to do one more question here, Jen, and then we can go with some Q&A if that's okay with you. I would say too, and this is just for Trevor, and then I'm going to get all of the panelists involved here in a second. Trevor, we talked a little bit about how you are three identities, really. You're a student athlete, and you're an athlete. What are ways that you try to balance those identities throughout the course of a day, in course of a year, in course of a semester, in course of over the course of multiple years?
So just being able to stay true with yourself, like especially with time management, like as a student, setting off those times to study, as an athlete, having your time to train, the little extra things that you do off like on your own, doing it that way, and then conjoining the two. Really, it's just everyone has their little things, like keeping your ducks in a row, like just making sure you're on top of everything, staying with everything and up to date. Just the biggest thing with me is like making sure that I have enough time to take care of myself as well as those other things too. And then when you get to that point, taking care of yourself, everything else takes care of itself. Everything else takes care of themselves as you go along with it, as long as you set that time aside to get through everything that you need to get through.
Thank you, Trevor. I think your point was well made there, through the process, and making sure that, as you said, that yourself and those things are in order to let the other things fall, which is great. I would ask our panelists, and first of all, I just want to say thank you again. You guys, the five of you have been awesome. Information has been great. These are faces that you'll see on campus in different ways. I would encourage all of you incomers to go ahead and use those resources that you have with them now. But if there was one word, this is challenging. I'm going to kind of long out the question to give you all a chance to think of it. But one word you would say about your experience as a student athlete at Seton Hill. I'm giving you time to think of the answer. Ready? Casey, go first.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Those are the 3 words or 4
Three
words.
words?
No, you said
4
4 words. You said
Oh.
that's a hard one. 1 word.
I would have to say the experience has been, it sounds dramatic, but probably life-changing, because for me, I never really, equestrian it's an individual sport, but this is the first time I've ever competed on a team. So it's really nice to be able to like form all these relationships and find like new people and just be a part of the team atmosphere while also being a part of like Seton Hill and being able to represent our school.
Thank you for that, Casey. Mackenzie.
This is going to sound kind of cliche, but I would say rewarding. I feel like in college, you don't really have off seasons, because I feel like once you become a collegiate athlete, you're constantly training, whether it is with your team. And I know as a softball player, we have a fall season, we train all winter, and then our main season's in the spring. And I really think it was really amazing in the spring to see it all come to fruition, and all of your hard work, whether it was early morning lifts or double days with 2 practices. Like in the spring, we made it to the PSAC championship, and it was just like such an amazing experience to look back at the fall and be like, wow, everything that we did like really paid off, and it was like all worth it, and it was really rewarding.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Taylin, you and your teammates had the #1 GPA in the country last year in Division II, highest GPA in all of Division II. You certainly didn't get your intelligence from your head coach. Taylin, what is the one word you would have?
I would probably have to say grateful. My experience was probably not the same as everybody else's experience. I'm surprised my coach didn't bring it up, but I am a first-generation college student, so as well as a student athlete at that. So I didn't start my college career at Seton Hill. I was at Cal U actually, and then I transferred in. And I think that being around a bunch of girls who had completely different personalities than me really like made me open up to like there's a lot of different kind of people in the world, and I think that I've created like lifelong friends through my teammates as well as like just being on campus as well. So, yeah.
Thank you, Taylin. You mentioned your first generation. We have another panelist that was first generation. Who was that? That's Sven. Our campus, just for all of you that are incomers, about 35 to 40% are first generation. So that's a fairly high number at Seton Hill, and it is a minority in terms of the university, in terms of higher ed, and it is a group that is distinct. And so I think there are advantages for those people and resources there, but I applaud every first gen. My mother was one, my father was one. I certainly wouldn't be on the path I was without them. So I applaud you, Sven. I applaud you, Taylin. You've heard many times. Trevor, one word.
My word would be growth. Just there's so much that changes in between high school and college. Like just growing into who you are as a student, who you are as an athlete, and mainly who you are as a person. Just between the relationships you make, like not every day is not going to be easy, and you have to overcome some of the adversity that happens, and it's all a learning curve just from what friends you need to stay friends with to help you succeed and to be happy, and what classes that you need to take and how you grow and how like learning what works best for you. So my experience to this point is my one word would be growth, just growing stronger as a person overall.
And getting stronger, right, Trevor, down in the weight room?
Oh, absolutely.
I love it. Sven, one word.
It's actually crazy because I had the same word as Taylin, grateful, but I'll go ahead and change it to thankful since I like to use the two pretty much every day. But I will say I'm very thankful for all the opportunities that being a student athlete has provided me on campus, for kind of just bringing me out of my shell. Because I didn't start athletics until I was a junior in high school. So it was all new to me, like third year running track coming into college. And it really brought me out of my shell it was to the point where I started forming connections with like staff members and faculty members on campus that led me to opportunities such as being an RA, an orientation leader, and in my current GA position with the admissions department, and just being open to everybody around me, and even opposing athletes. Like one of my best friends is actually he ran for Slippery Rock University. I didn't know him going into college, and he graduated at 19. And we still have like that relationship, pretty much talk every day. So I'm definitely thankful for all the opportunities Seton Hill has provided me, the track and field team, and all the faculty and staff members.
I can say personally, I've met Sven through a lot of different circles on campus. He's somebody who's involved different ways. I know for myself as an employee, my experience has been enriched by getting involved different ways. And I think our panelists just did an awesome job here tonight sharing thoughts. Jen, I guess I'll turn it over to you if you have anything from the chat, or if you want to facilitate a little Q&A here. I think Taylin has to jump off in a second, but we should have the others for a little while longer to kind of get through this.
Caitlin, I see your hand up.
Yeah, there's a question that I wanted to answer in the chat.
Okay. So sorry, I'll read the question out loud. So Caitlin asked, do you recommend working a job on top of sports and classes? Taylor, I'll let you go ahead to start us off.
Honestly, it's possible. I will tell you that it's possible, but I'm not going to tell you that it's super easy, because it's not the easiest thing in the world, because you already have to manage 2-3 hour practices on top of class all day, and then trying to work. If you want to work, I would say like shoot for maybe a work study that's on campus, so you don't have to travel off campus. I'm not going to say no, don't work, because that's a bad thing, because you want to make some money, but at the same time, like, you have to be realistic, because after a while you will get tired. Like you really will get tired. Like me being a basketball player, I feel like our season goes on forever. It really just goes on forever. Like we start in August and we could play it maybe till March, April. So it really just depends. So if you want a job, you can get a job, but it also just depends on your time management, how well you can balance things.
Yeah, I can definitely second that, because I held a job ever since I came in my freshman year in the fall, where my junior and senior year, I actually worked overnights, 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. 3 times a week, like during the week. It's definitely possible. You just have to be on top of your health regimen and like everything, to the point where you just become like a creature of habit, like finding little points to like relax and take like a mental health day or something. Like Taylor said, like, of course you want to make your money. If you're paying for schooling yourself like I did, like you'll find any means possible to do it. Don't be afraid. Like there's plenty of help on campus. If you do need financial aid or anything, like you're never alone, but it is possible. Would I recommend it? I would, because I'm a little bit of a nutcase, but be true to yourself and just, reflect on it before you actually jump into it, I would say.
And from a coach end, just proactive in all your planning for that. Have those conversations early with coaches, and do your best that you can that way.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Another question in the chat is it necessary to have a car on campus?
I would say no. It's definitely not a necessity. I mean, it kind of just depends on the person that you are. If you like to like go out and explore, or if your idea of like needing like personal time would be to like go to the store and walk around or something along those lines, then maybe it would be smart. But there are like shuttles on campus that take you to Walmart and other places I know around Greensburg, but so you wouldn't have to really worry about like not getting groceries. And there's also like Instacart and things along those lines. But I would say it's not a necessity. I mean, you have to think about the extra like added expenses like gas and things like that. And it depends on how close you are to home and if you think you'll want to be going home a lot. But it's definitely not a necessity, especially as a student athlete. There probably will be upperclassmen that have cars, and they might even be willing to bring you places if you need that. There's not always a guarantee, but I'm sure that there would be willing people to take you anywhere you need.
Casey, Sven, if you two can jump in, because I think you occasionally both practice off campus. think you mentioned that, Casey. How does that transportation work in terms of getting to practice? Is that provided by the school? Do you have to drive yourself? How do they do that?
So for our practices, a bunch of our teammates actually have cars. So a lot of times one of us will just drive. However, we do have a van. Well, the school provides us with a van when it's available that anyone above 21 on our team can drive once they're certified. So a lot of times we'll be traveling in that, which is nice because it could fit, I think it fits 6 people. And it's nice when someone else drives because then you can do homework. But if we can't drive the van for some reason, or if we have more people, there's definitely someone on the team that will be willing to drive you. And I know for us, like last year and like my freshman year, I didn't have a car on campus, and it was perfectly fine because a bunch of my teammates had cars. And if I ever needed to go somewhere, I would just text in a group chat and see if anyone would be willing to go with me or drive me. And a bunch of times, like multiple people would offer to go. So definitely not necessary to have a car.
Ben, I know you guys practice off campus. I want to say golf, tennis, equestrian, those may be the only ones off campus, is what I'm thinking. How do you guys manage it?
Yeah, so majority of the sports actually can't practice on campus, but like the sports that Coach just named, like for track and field specifically, we practice at the local high school until hopefully we breaking ground in the fall for a new little track on campus. Hopefully. But yeah, we travel to the local high school here. And like Casey said, there's always upperclassmen that will give you a ride, or anybody that has a car. Because just if you think about it, if you don't show up to practice and you're like, I asked Casey for a ride to practice, coach, and she said no, that kind of looks bad on her part. So it's kind of like an obligation, but it's also, you guys are a family at the end of the day, practicing every day together, going to dinner together, because dinner is usually after practice, since practice blocks are usually 4 to 6. So you're going to have those bonds and relationships to the point where it's not going to feel like they're obligated to do it, but you guys are friends and family at the end of the day. I know for us, we don't have a school van, so it's pretty much on you, and gas is on you, which is kind of unfortunate. But carpooling is definitely a big one for us.
One thing I can say, and my coach can testify to this, when you do have a car, you want to go home a lot. I had a car my freshman year. I had a car all my years of school, and my freshman year, maybe my freshman and sophomore year, I went home every weekend, and I didn't do no socializing, no anything, and I honestly, like, if I can go back, I wouldn't do it because I feel like I missed out on a lot. So honestly, I would just say, like, branch out, get friends with cars or whatever the case may be. But gas money tends to rack up. You spend a lot on gas, but definitely, like, it's not necessary. But if you want it, you could definitely bring it.
Thank you all.
We have another question that was sent saying, are you able to participate in other clubs or like choirs and things when you are in a sport?
I would say yes. I know someone on our team, she graduated a year before I came here, but her sister's was a member of our team my freshman year. But she did, I want to say marching band while also being on our team. And our coach was super flexible about letting her like either leave practice early or come to a different practice time so she could go to practices for the marching band and also be like performing for football, like the football games. So I would say it's definitely possible.
I would just reiterate what Coach said. Just have those conversations early with your coaches, because they're not going to be like, no, I don't want you to do this. They want you to be involved as much as you can, or as much as you can handle. Like, I mean, you are their athlete, but they also want you to be a student and involved on campus and not be like a shut-in. So just follow up with your coaches and then have those talks early.
Awesome. Any other questions, whether you want to unmute yourself or you want to throw it in the chat? All right, well, we will stick around if you do have any questions, but to kind of close this out, I first of all want to thank Coach Kotarski for facilitating today. And I also want to thank our amazing panelists, all of our student athletes who are able to take time out of their schedule to meet with us today. You provided such wonderful answers, and I think you gave a great insight to what it's like to be a student, an athlete, and a student athlete here at Seton Hill. For all of you who are tuning in tonight, if you're looking to come to any of our upcoming events for virtual orientation, you can view these on the website through Shine. You also got one of these Road to the Hills flyers as well, but our next event is going to be on Monday, June 21st, and this is going to be our student leader panel. So very similar like tonight, we'll have representatives from our student government, our programming board, resident advisors, senior class president, service advisory board, campus ministry, orientation, performing arts, and more. So you'll have a chance to listen to them, share their insights about their experiences here at Seton Hill, and really get to engage with them. On Thursday, June 24th, we have our second trivia night, and this is going to focus on people, places, and things at Seton Hill. Bethany Gary, who's our assistant director for resident life, and myself will be hosting that event. And if you win first, second, or third place, you get a $25 gift card. Who doesn't love some free gifts? So definitely check our second trivia night out. And then if you don't already have it marked on your calendar, on Tuesday, June 29th, it is our second Welcome to the Hill session. This will be at 1 p.m. This is for you all to get a glance at Seton Hill University, and this is a 2-hour program that will help you transition through this process. We encourage all incoming students and require them to come to one of these sessions. We had one earlier in May. We have our June one on June 29th, and then we also have one July 24th at 10 a.m. You only need to come to one Welcome to the Hill sessions, but we really encourage you to come so that way we can ensure your check-in process goes as smoothly as possible. Again, I want to thank Coach and our wonderful panelists for being here today. And I'm going to turn off the recording if anyone else has any other questions.